When the world lost legendary Australian cartoonist Bill Leak in 2017, it lost a man who had an uncanny gift to bring difficult issues to life with a pen and paper. His cartoons were always powerful and often under siege by leftist commentators, but he never stopped, even though the appearance of controversy attempted to hold him back. We are privileged every week to be joined by his son, Johannes Leak, who has followed in his footsteps as a cartoonist and has clearly heeded the lessons of his father well. This week is a special edition of Newsleak because Johannes and I will be joined by Fred Paul, the author of Bill's biography, Die Laughing, which has just gone on sale. Welcome both. Fred, we'll start with you. Why was it so important for you to write this book, and what can we learn about Bill's life by having a read?
Well, Bill lived a very quintessential Australian life, and I think Australia is at a stage now where Australian culture is not as celebrated as much as it should be. And Bill, towards the end of his life, in the last couple of years, got embroiled in some pretty sensational controversies. But the problem for me was that overshadowed everything else he did in his life. And he did a hell of a lot. He only lived to the age of 61, but he achieved an enormous amount. He was a great raconteur. He was a fantastic artist and just a great all-round bloke. And I just thought, rather than him be remembered for these controversies that he endured, much noble though they were, I wanted him to be remembered for everything else he did too.
Well done. Now, Johannes, you've sent in some of your dad's all-time greatest cartoons. Let's rip straight into them. This first one that you've got here is absolutely brilliant. Still quite timely because he still won't shut up. But we've got Julia Gillard standing over the remains of Kevin Rudd.
Yes, blood and guts all over the place. He's worse than being knifed. He's actually been dismembered here, but as we can see, he still won't shut up. And you've got a bloke in the background speaking to his mate, a couple of abattoir workers, saying, I told her she should have stunned him first."
Fred, he had a knack, didn't he, to bring those issues into really graphic vision.
Well, exactly, Jack. And this is something that's right across his career. As part of the book, I had to research well into the start of his career. And he started off by admiring Ralph Steadman a lot back in the day. And Bill's earliest cartoons, this cartoon is quite mild compared to what Bill did when he first got to the Australian. I mean, the number of limbs and heads that he severed in the first couple of years of his career were really quite extraordinary. It was actually a bit of a massacre, to be honest.
And Johannes, let's go on to the second one you've put forward. Coming through, Hurt Feelings Unit, man hit by cartoon. What's happening here?
Well, in this cartoon, Dad's actually referencing some of the ordeals and travails that he found himself in, off the back of publishing what were considered to be hurtful, offensive and controversial cartoons. But he actually loved playing with the idea that a cartoon could hurt somebody to the extent that, that in this situation, we've got somebody hit by a cartoon and being whisked off into the Hurt Feelings Unit with a couple of lawyers saying coming through. So he did love to play with the absurd notion that, words are violence. We hear this these days, the idea that words can be violence and can be violent and can be so hurtful. But at the end of the day, people choose to be offended, and he just thought, as a cartoonist, that's it's every cartoonist's duty to sort of push back against those kinds of restrictions.
Fred, one thing that always jumps out at me with those arguments is they're often by journalists on the left, and you would think that they would be purveyors of freedom of speech and they'd be wanting everyone to engage in discourse. But time and time again, we have this sentiment that we're offended, you can't discuss this. And this is something that I guess Bill fought back against his entire life.
Yeah, in fact, the person on the stretcher could easily be a journalist from the ABC, to be honest, or, any other woke media organisation. Yeah, that's right. I mean, that bloke on the stretcher kind of represents the everyman, and Bill didn't think that ordinary people were offended by it. It's just that's the way the left sees it. What I love about this gag, though, is that it's a cartoon about a cartoon. Bill never sort of resiled from the idea that you could you could have a meta cartoon. He was very funny about that. And then, you know, just as he was drawing it, he probably changed it at the last minute and decided that a couple of lawyers would be the best stand-ins for the ambulance operators. So, yeah, great cartoon, mate.
Yeah, it is incredibly meta. It's a good way of putting it. All right, now, Fred, I want to get your thoughts on this next one. We've got Malcolm Turnbull, and he's holding up a newspaper that says Turnbull, arrogant, condescending, aloof. The poll is out now.
Mate, I love this one. It reminds me of one of the first times I ever saw Bill draw a cartoon. I can't remember what the cartoon was, but he was in the process of drawing someone's hands. And he did this to his hands and he looked at it, got exactly the right hand shape that he wanted. And then he immediately, while it was still fresh in his memory, got it down on paper. And Hannes will agree to this. Hannes has actually inherited this skill magnificently. The two hands in this and the entire body language, when you look at Turnbull's, you know, legs, the way he's got his knees together and stuff, not many cartoonists understand body language as thoroughly as Bill did. Well, Johannes is one of them, I've got to say. And it takes an artist to do that.
Johannes, the thing that jumps out at me is the message that it couldn't be that Malcolm Turnbull's in the wrong and has to be everybody else who's dumb.
No, it's superb, isn't it? And the anguish on his face that they could be so stupid as to you know, find him arrogant and condescending. The little detail that I love that you might not have noticed is just have a look at the shape of the hilt of that sword. That's just another lovely little detail.
I'm not going to draw any more attention to that, but point taken. Let's very quickly bring up the next one on the screen. And we've got the same bloke walking into a pub. He's got his classic bush hat on. Fred, was he really a man of the bush? He's quite adaptable, isn't he?
Yeah, it's amazing how Bill, throughout his career, Bill put politicians into characters that they clearly weren't, and this is a very good example of it. But what I love about this is the dichotomy between the people in the pub and the bloke who's just walked through the door. Bill, for all his faults, loved pubs and thought they were great places to meet people. And everyone has clearly, until 2 seconds ago, been having a great time. And then this bloke walks in and spoils the fun for everyone.
And I love
Fred
just how he's trying just far too hard. You know, the language is just so over the top. It's just beautiful.
Well said, Johannes. Thank you so much for your time. It's a privilege every single week. And Fred, thank you for joining us. Grab a copy of his book, Die Laughing. It'll be a sensational read.